Round 2 going to be getting underway here. This time we have FrozenWinter versus Wolf. Wolf opening up with an Ezreal Heimerdinger deck. Opening Heimerdinger going to be a very good card for any matchup. Heimer generally known for his safe matchups. The Freljord version a little more reliant on the Ezreal, as there is no protection for the Heimerdinger. However, making the informed decision to run Heimerdinger instead of the Elnuk package here is generally the main difference we see between these decks. So valuing the Heimer value in a lot of matchups over the RNG of the Troop of Elnuks. And then on the side of FrozenWinter, we're opening up with an Ionia Freljord deck. However, this is not the elusive deck that a lot of people are used to seeing. No, this is something much more special. Near and dear to my heart is this Dawn and Dusk Anivia Karma deck. Now, the general strategy of this deck is to get out an Anivia and then cast Dawn and Dusk on it. This will create 2 ephemeral Anivias, which will then die, create Eggnivias, and in this game, Eggnivia is a separate entity from Anivia, meaning Eggnivia will not have the ephemeral from the Dawn and Dusk. Now when you hit the Enlightened turn and they upgrade, these Eggnivias will turn into real Anivias. You will have 3 Anivias, and you can continue to attack your opponent and deal 6 damage to their board and face every single turn, which makes the deck extremely resilient to Frostbite effects. It's a very powerful control finisher, and even just a bare Anivia is going to be very useful against this Heimerdinger deck, as all of these turrets do have 1 health, and by the time Heimerdinger has upgraded, it's very likely that the Anivia has also upgraded, and then the 2 damage coming down to sweep out the turrets that now have 2 health. So I would definitely put the advantage in FrozenWinter's corner here, and this Dawn and Dusk coming down into his hand just needs to find an Anivia to cobble together with it. Unfortunately, no entreats coming out of FrozenWinter, and finding 2 Bull Elnuk instead of a Troop of Elnuks, not the one that you want to see, unfortunately. And back to this Dawn and Dusk, one more point that I want to make. It's actually very difficult, and I believe impossible, more or less, for this Ezreal deck, this Ezreal Heimerdinger deck, to kill the Anivia in response to the Dawn and Dusk. It would take something like a double Mystic Shot or a Mystic Shot Get Excited if it's an Enlightened and upgraded Anivia. So this Dawn and Dusk almost certainly going to close out the game if it can be found onto an Anivia. And if the Anivias do not attack the turn that they come out, there is no opportunity to Mystic Shot the Eggnivias or anything like that. So you will guaranteed get your 3 free real Anivias. But until that happens, this Heimerdinger going to swing the board state and game back into Wolf's favor. Do have this theoretical endgame for FrozenWinter. However, he does have to find the other combo piece in Anivia. Gonna get down a Shadow Assassin for some draw power, electing not to play the Karma, instead looking for the Anivia that he knows can close out the game. And on the flip side, while this Ezreal Freljord deck has no answer for the Anivia, it's actually very difficult for this Ionia deck to answer this Heimerdinger. Will of Ionia really being the only removal spell, could use a couple of avalanches in conjunction with each other, but here it would just clear his own board as well. Going into 9 mana would be enough to clear out this Heimerdinger. However, if you do it proactively, then your opponent gets to play some turrets or some spells in response, and then the turrets can come down after the avalanches, and it definitely gets a little bit awkward. So probably not going to be using the double avalanche to swing on this Heimer, which is a good thing, as there is a second Heimer in the hand of Wolf, would make this play invalidated. And now we're going to see a Static Shock coming down, almost certainly going to get denied here. The only real things that you can deny in this matchup are the Static Shock and Thermogenic Beam. Now, Thermogenic Beam, not particularly useful against this deck. Tapping out all of your mana to kill an Anivia doesn't really work, as she will just turn into Eggnivia, and then you have no more mana with which to spend spells to kill her before she upgrades, unless you can get it down pre-Enlightenment turn, which there's such a small window where the Anivia exists before she actually fully upgrades. And here, this is going to stop the Static Shock, which is the other option, as that one will get 2 Ezreal targets in, kind of supplement that backup win condition. And this Elixir of Brilliance out of Wolf here, getting a perfection, not something that you're going to actually see getting played here in a standard Heimerdinger Ezreal deck. It is possible, as Heimer does create a lot of different turrets. However, for the most part, very difficult to get off whenever I Elixir of Brilliance into a Pursuit of Perfection, I believe is the name of the card. I generally find myself only having 9 or 10 different cards played, and it's very difficult to find those last 10 to get through and actually summon this Overwhelm monstrosity that the card does bring out. So they're not going to go through onto this Static Shock. The freeze effect coming out will create a second MK3 elusive turret, and the Karma just going to come down and get a free spell. It's worth noting that the Dawn and Dusk, if played on the Karma, can also just swing a game in your favor, as summoning 6 Karmas is a pretty good way to just close out the game, as they are very powerful units. You know, just 5/4s, 6 of them will do the job. You only have 20 life, that's 30 damage, or at least will trade into your opponent's board all for 1 card. And then it's going to be the Progress Day out of Wolf here, going to fill up on some freeze effects, as I was saying earlier, not particularly useful in this matchup, as it doesn't do much against the Anivia, which does get value as soon as it attacks, much like Hecarim, although Anivia arguably doing more than Hecarim, especially if you can compile multiple of them. But this T-Hex is going to be a problem here for Master FrozenWinter. I don't know why I called him Master FrozenWinter to deal with. I'm sure these are both Master level players, so perhaps that is what I was thinking. So Will of Ionia, T-Hex probably the best target in the deck, might use it for a tempo play on the Heimerdinger instead. There's going to be an Avarosan Sentry coming down. This Catalyst could push forward the Enlightened turn. It is something I really like about the Catalyst in this matchup, and a full 3 copies coming out of FrozenWinter. No health potion, instead supplementing for the Catalyst. Pushing the Enlightened turn is just great. You have so much value that you can get out of it between the Anivia and the Karma. And it is going to be an Iceveil Archer coming down onto this Bull Elnuk. The wrong Elnuk to find in your hand. Definitely want to get the troop down and try an RNG into the triple Bull. Instead, finding 2 Bull here, something that also happens from time to time. It is the risk that you take when you run this package, and of course Wolf deciding the risk wasn't worth it and instead going for a Heimerdinger package in this Freljord Ezreal deck. But Heimerdinger looking like the star of the show here. Going to line up some blocks on the side of FrozenWinter. And Will of Ionia on the Heimerdinger, saying, I just want to attack your mana at this point rather than your actual board, not wanting to put the T-Hex back, even though it would cost 8 mana to come back down. Generally, in that situation, I end up rummaging them away unless I can really find a good time to get down an 8 mana 8/8, which almost never happens. And a third Avalanche picked up for FrozenWinter. You can see him laughing there in the bottom left, understanding that that's almost certainly never going to happen. And Ghost, going to give an ally elusive for the turn. That actually can come in really big with the Dawn and Dusk, as it will create an exact copy of the unit. So with Ghost, you will have elusive copies for the turn. However, it is now FrozenWinter's turn to attack. Just kind of looking at this Avalanche. It will not kill his Karma. Will, however, put her in range for the Mystic Shot in Wolf's hand. And being at 8 mana, not enough to immediately Catalyst into the Enlightened turn, so you cannot upgrade your Karma. And this one, looking solely in the control of Wolf. No Anivias coming through for FrozenWinter. And 2 Heimerdinger on the side of Wolf is going to make this very difficult to deal with. Mystic Shot almost certainly going to come down and hit this Karma here. Does have the Twin Disciplines to try and save it. Looking at this Twin Discipline, thinking about his plays, could actually go for lethal relatively soon with this Ghost, Dawn and Dusk, and Twin Disciplines. Unfortunately, this is a Frostbite deck, and all you have to do is freeze the Karma in response to the Dawn and Dusk, and all of the copies will also have 0 attack. That is the double-sided sword of this Dawn and Dusk, creating exact copies, but it is going to be the Ezreal Mystic, or not the Ezreal's Mystic Shot, just a Mystic Shot onto this Karma, which will be countered out by Twin Disciplines. However, that is going to create a 3/2 tough MK2 turret on the side of Wolf, while both players at a relatively high life total, rather. FrozenWinter just not finding what he needs to, and it is a 13 mana play to get a Dawn and Dusk down on Anivia the turn she comes out, so not going to be available on the next turn for FrozenWinter. And it looks like a it's the +1 quick attack spell. And a second Karma coming out here for FrozenWinter. Get excited off the top. Will still kill this Karma even through the Catalyst, which would upgrade her. So unfortunate for FrozenWinter that is not another Mystic Shot. This Ezreal sitting at 6 out of 8. Very close to coming down and ending this game. Not a lot of healing out of the deck of FrozenWinter outside of these Catalysts. It's always sort of an awkward spell to play once you are at the Enlightened turn, as you no longer get the mana. You are just paying 5 mana for a health potion that can only go at your face. It looks like going to be swinging out with the T-Hex and the MK2 here on the side of Wolf, taking it back, reconsidering his options. Might want to Ice Veil Archer this Karma, or just remove it first. There is going to be the Pursuit of Perfection discarded and sacrificed to the Get Excited. Now, this Catalyst, as I said earlier, not going to protect the Karma from this, but FrozenWinter does have another Karma in hand. Going to be able to play that and get one last spell out of it before going into the Enlightened turn and losing that ability forever. And it's going to be the Bull Elnuk coming out first. We are at 7 out of 8 on that Ezreal. Still not finding an Ezreal on the side of Wolf, but he does have a lot more draw power than FrozenWinter currently does in order to try and find his Anivia. And the Ezreal, not even something that he has to find. This Heimerdinger going to be more than enough. Unfortunately, FrozenWinter not finding the Anivia that would make this matchup a whole lot easier for him. That is one of the downsides of it. You do have to find that card if you're going to win. And FrozenWinter, considering an Avalanche, deciding it's not worth it. And just a couple of progress days. Sitting in the hand of Wolf with a slew of Frostbite effects and a Thermogenic Beam. Going to throw out this Avalanche, get this elusive turret off the field, but not the tough one. So that is going to go down to 1 damage. But this does mean that the next Avalanche will clear out the board. And with only 3 mana left, considering an Ice Veil Archer perhaps into a Thermogenic Beam, just push through lethal damage here. Would actually not be lethal damage, would be 1 shy of lethal, as that is 16 if he goes for a Thermogenic Beam and a swing out, which would put FrozenWinter at 1. While there is a lot of burn in this deck... Oh no, that's right, the Thermogenic Beam, of course, will create a turret, and that will force out the Flash Freeze onto the T-Hex. Here I am forgetting what Heimerdinger does, and how absurd the little mad scientist can be. It's going to be going down to 3 on the side of Neverwinter. Now, Anivia would be too little too late, did not find it anyway. This Avalanche will clean up the entire board. However, there is still a Heimerdinger in the hand of Wolf, going to Progress Day in response to get the T-Hex, finding a few more Frostbite effects and a Rummage. That is going to be the T-Hex coming down, followed by an Enlightened Karma from Neverwinter. Not a whole lot to do with these doubled up spells. Has things like the Ghost and Dusk and Dawn to try and go for a cheeky kill. However, too many Frostbite effects in the hand of Wolf for that to ever work out. Gonna find his 3rd Heimerdinger as well off of that Rummage. Looking, just digging for that last Get Excited to try and finish out this game here and take himself to a healthy 1-0 lead over FrozenWinter. Elixir of Iron, probably one of the more useless cards you could find at this point. That is one of the concerns with this deck. It is sort of a combo deck, even though it is a control deck, and there's not a lot of actual card draw outside of the Avarosan Sentry. It's really just reliant on finding the cards organically, as you do get to draw essentially 2 cards a turn in traditional TCG terms, where the turn being where you get to attack. So control decks definitely have an advantage there. Combo decks seem to just naturally kind of work pretty well in this game due to the turn system. It looks like that is going to be a Static Shock coming at the Ice Veil Archer and the face, which will shore up a lethal with this Mystic Shot. Not actually going to work out in the face of this Catalyst. And a 3rd Harsh Winds picked up on the side of Wolf, never finding this Ezreal, but having the Heimerdingers so that it does not matter. Looks like the fearsome MK5 turret will be coming down. No more Frostbite effects on the side of FrozenWinter, despite his name. Gonna have a hard time here, going to have to block this 5-2 turret, as well as a Catalyst for the life gain. Could actually block the Heimerdinger and go to a relatively low life total, but instead going to go for the Elixir of Iron and preserve the life total. It is going to be a Flash Freeze onto the Karma. Going to protect this MK5 fearsome turret. Or MK4, rather. I saw the attack and assumed it was a 5. Looks like FrozenWinter still looking for that Anivia, praying for it to finally come. And it will be too little too late, even if it did come at this point. You have to assume as it would get to clear out a lot of the board, but not all of the board. This T-Hex would survive, but perhaps it would be enough, and it looks like FrozenWinter, not finding the Anivia, is going to have to go for this Ghost buff Dusk and Dawn play onto the Karma, which will not work in the face of these harsh winds. Thinking about it, Anivia actually probably would have swung the game back into FrozenWinter's favor in a big way, as it would have created 5 Anivias, which would have cleared out the entire board. So my mistake there in saying that the Anivia was coming too late. That is one of the beauties of this deck, is no matter when you find it. It looks like he did just go for electing not to Harsh Winds in response. Is now going to use the Harsh Winds onto some of these Karmas. Even if the Anivias were to come out in a Dusk and Dawn, it wouldn't necessarily be game over on the side of Wolf, as an Ezreal top deck would just shore up the game as well, as Neverwinter on a very low life total, and just kind of showing his opponent that he had all of the answers by Harsh Windsing after the Dusk and Dawn came out. And a Winter's Breath, another card that would have been extremely useful with the Karma out, as the double up effect on that does wipe the board, but that's going to be game number 1 going over to Wolf and this Ezreal Heimerdinger deck. Here we are in game number 2 of Wolf versus FrozenWinter. Wolf taking game number 1 with his Ezreal Heimerdinger Frostbite deck, and FrozenWinter electing to stay with this Anivia Karma control, mulliganing away the Anivia that had eluded him last game, as it is not quite as good in this matchup as it was in the previous one. And of course, the Mono Shadow Isle coming out of Wolf does mean a few things. Number 1, it means that Noxus does not appear anywhere in his lineup. I want to touch on that for a second, because so far in this tournament, every time we have seen a player run a mono regional deck, Noxus has been the region that got cut from the lineup. Whether that was Mono Demacia or Mono Shadow Isle, Noxus just not being valued by the players in this tournament for its inflexibility. Of all of the Noxus decks in this tournament, all of them are aggro or aggressive decks, with the possible exception of Icarus's Ashe Noxus deck that we did see yesterday. Outside of that, it's pretty much aggro across the board for Noxus, so the late game and removal spells and mid-rangey packages in Noxus just not quite making the cut for this tournament. Now that could be indicative of the format that we have gone with here. Maybe there's just other stronger regional combinations, you don't want the Noxus to come down, or perhaps it is a larger commentary on Noxus as a whole and the strength of that region, where they lie, and its glaring weaknesses. Now, back to the game at hand here. We do have, as I said earlier, the Atrocity Ladros combo coming out of this Mono Shadow Isle deck, as well as a couple copies of the Harrowing. No Grasp of the Undyings or Vengeances, and as there is a lack of Frostbite effects within this Anivia deck, the Atrocity could actually get a lot of value here. Now it looks like a Glimpse Beyond going to be coming down onto this Elise, as an extremely aggressive start has come out of Wolf, looking to pick up a quick 2-0 lead here in game number 2. Really just kind of round things out with his last Demacia Ionia deck, and it's going to be a Shadow Assassin played here for FrozenWinter rather, and a second Shadow Assassin, just getting some card acceleration going. Avaros and Sentries and Shadow Assassins really the only draw power in this deck, as there are no copies of it Entreat, and that's going to be a box clearing out the Shadow Assassins, not letting FrozenWinter find his footing for a counterattack. Here comes a troop of Elnuks. This could be big for FrozenWinter. We've seen this swing games before. Can it do it again? And he's going to put it back and go for the Shadow Assassin. 28 cards in deck with 1 Bull Elnuk already in play. And he's going to go for the troop of Elnuks, and it's going to be a big whiff on the side of FrozenWinter. The first one that we've seen all tournament. You can see FrozenWinter maniacally laughing in the bottom. Cannot believe what is happening to him. Wolf has to be breathing a sigh of relief, and sometimes the Troop of Elnuks does this to you. It is a very powerful and very fickle beast is the Elnuk. The Iceveil Archer going to come down on this Mistwraith, just trying to develop a larger board. A couple copies of Rekindler in the hand of Wolf, but no Hecarim to be found just yet. There is an Elise in the death pool, though, that was sacrificed to a Glimpse Beyond after blocking a Bull Elnuk, or after being blocked by a Bull Elnuk. So no board space to play the Rekindler, though, and here comes an Anivia, which actually could get a decent amount done here. Unfortunately, FrozenWinter will have the attack token on turn 9, which means this Anivia will not be able to clear out the board, as it will only be doing 1 damage. Avalanche definitely would have been a better pickup here. And now FrozenWinter Winter looking over his options, perhaps even considering something like the Dusk and Dawn onto the Bull Elnuk just to get more blockers in for this turn, try and survive. That is one of the cool things about Dusk and Dawn, aside from being an amazing combo piece with things like the Anivia and the Karma. It is just a very versatile card in general, being played on things like Avaros and Sentry or Shadow Assassin can get a lot of additional card draw going. Or in cases like this, just being played on a Bull Elnuk to develop a few more blockers. This is effectively going to say kill 2 units if you want to attack, which is a very good value for a 6 mana card. So now, Wolf going to have to reconsider these attacks, but instead just going to go all in, say I don't care about your card advantage, I can push through damage, I have enough gas in my hand still that I just want to free up some board space to get some Rekindlers down, start reviving these Elises, get one down and evolve it even, as there is a number of spiders on board. However, if all of these blocks line up as they are, which I don't see a way for this to be stopped by Wolf, it is going to be 0 spiders coming down and just pushing through the 3 damage rather from this Mist Wraith, as the troop of Elnuks and the Iceveil Archer cannot block it due to the Frenzied Skitterer, reducing their attack, putting them below the fearsome blocking threshold. It is going to be a big board trade here, which could swing things back in the favor of FrozenWinter. I say back in the favor like he ever had the advantage this game, which does not feel like it is the case. Another Arachnid Horror coming down here, followed by a Black Spear onto this Bull Elnuk. No more Dusk and Dawn's going to be played on that one. Could use a Twin Disciplines to save it here, or perhaps even a Deny. Although the Deny obviously getting a lot of value in the wake of this Harrowing that could be coming down relatively soon here. The Twin Discipline going to make the most sense and save this Bull Elnuk as a 4-2. Nope. Might just let it die and get down the Shadow Assassin instead. However, Shadow Assassin, not a fearsome blocker, but does just want to get the card draw down. No, actually just wants to float the spell mana. Could be Anivia coming down here. Avaros and Sentry, not exactly what you want to see. Unfortunately, as I was saying earlier, this is turn 9, 1 away from the Enlightened turn. It's very interesting how decks like this can be swung by which turn you get the attack token, whether you're going first or second. And I do like that it has sort of balanced out that regard. In a lot of card games, you want to go first 100% of the time, but here there are definitely decks where going second is more advantageous. For example, this Anivia Karma deck, where you would have the attack token on turn 10 if you went second. Instead, this Anivia could swing out still, deal 1 damage to the board. Unfortunately, not actually going to get a whole lot done, but it will probably not even get blocked. But if it did, it would revive next turn. No harm, no foul. Just trying to build up as big a board as possible. Unfortunately, nothing going to die to this Anivia, as the Dusk and Dawn did have to be used earlier. Not that it could be played with this Anivia on this turn anyway, as Dusk and Dawn Anivia is a 13 mana play, only possible on turn 10 with 3 banked spell mana. But the Avaros and Sentry, willing to get thrown under the bus, reconsidering it as it is a blocker for the Rekindler. This Anivia, on the other hand, going to upgrade and become a fearsome blocker herself. So not lethal potentially without perfect information, as only 3 damage would be coming through from this Elise and her 1/1 spider on the side of Wolf. And this Catalyst actually going to be a pretty huge pickup, as it is going to negate the damage done by the Mark of the Isle. Unfortunately, not going to have the Karma down for it means that it will only be a single 3 health buff. But you have to assume that a Karma or Shadow Assassin will be coming down along with this. There's going to be the Mark of the Isle onto the Spiderling. The Catalyst going to get played. This Spiderling almost certainly just going to die, not be cast off to a Glimpse Beyond, as this will put FrozenWinter down to 1. You can see him laughing there in the corner. And I'm going to be a second Anivia for a Harsh Winds. Unfortunately, not the most useful card in this matchup. Now, running some math here, if the Shadow Assassin comes down and the Karma comes down, and then both of these Twin Disciplines are played on this Shadow Assassin, that is only going to be 14 damage coming through from the Shadow Assassin. Completely unblockable, as there are no elusive units in Shadow Isle, and this is a mono Shadow Isle deck, which unfortunately not going to be enough to close out the game here for FrozenWinter. Going to have to find a different avenue of victory. Hard considering the deny on this Glimpse Beyond. It looks like that is going to be the play, which will open him up to the Harrowing. Just doing math on the Hecarim and the number of cards in deck, as a Hecarim would swing the game heavily into Wolf's favor in terms of potentially ending it on the spot. It looks like the deny is going to go through onto this Glimpse Beyond, meaning the Harrowing will be coming down in a couple of turns, not going to be played on FrozenWinter's turn, as that would not make any sense, as you can't attack. Picking up the Iceveil Archer and a Karma. It's Karma likely going to play the Inside of Ages Karma, shuffle a couple more Karmas into your deck, trying to figure out how many more times I can jam the word Karma into this sentence, but Karma is coming for me and I am running out. But these 4 spells could swing things back for FrozenWinter if he can find a deny for this Harrowing. So he does currently have the board to be able to survive the onslaught currently presented, as it is a rather weak one. Spirit Blade is going to actually be pretty big here with these twin disciplines. Could even just jam it this turn with a Karma attack. Could throw a Take Heart on this Anivia actually as well. Actually, a Spirit Blade on the Anivia would actually be a rather big life swing, as she will deal 8 damage across the units and the face of Wolf, followed by an actual hit on the face. Probably not going to happen, as it will get blocked by the Hapless Aristocrat, but that would still be 8 damage coming through in lifesteal for this Anivia, electing not to go for this, instead probably going to wait until next turn. Could get a Take Heart on this Anivia, as well as a Spirit's Blade. Lining up blockers with the Rekindler. It is going to die to this Winter's Breath ability of Anivia anyway. I do not think that is actually the name of the ability. I do not remember it off the top of my head. Winter's Breath being a completely separate card in the Freljord. That is just going to be most of the board wiped away for Wolf here. Doesn't have a lot of gas left in the tank, but one of the cards is the Harrowing. But throwing down the Hapless Aristocrat and the Rekindler, saying I don't need to use this Harrowing just yet. Elise not going to evolve, as there are only 2 other spiders, since this Hapless Aristocrat is not itself a spider, only creates one when it dies. This is going to be some attacks coming out now for this Elise. No Mark the Isle picked up to go for a surprise lethal, and things might actually swing back into Neverwinter's favor here, thanks to this Spirit's Refuge pickup from the Age of Insight Karma. Just lining up the attacks, trying to figure out how things work out. There's going to be 2 Spiderlings produced. Now the Harsh Winds going to be able to prevent death here. It will be the Spirit's... Nope, not going to quite play the Spirit's Refuge just yet. Could actually theoretically go up to 20 with the Spirit's Refuge, depending on if he can wait until his turn to attack to play it. This is going to be a block onto the Elise, just making sure that his Karma will live even if a Vile Feast comes through. Not wanting to block the Rekindler. Instead saying it's okay for that to live, as Anivia will take care of that next turn. Potentially going up to 4 here, and then getting 1 damage onto this Shadow Assassin could end the game with the Take Heart and the 2 Twin Disciplines. So not even needing to save the Spirit's Refuge for next turn for a big life swing, actually just going to be able to kill his opponent, as this Black Spear almost certainly going to come down onto the Egg Nivea, not thinking of the Shadow Assassin as the threat here, even though it will end the game next turn. It's very unreasonable to expect that this Shadow Assassin is going to kill you. Definitely cannot fault Wolf for playing the Black Spear on this Anivia, as it would clear his board. But the Elixir of Iron going to come out and protect the Anivia anyway. Would not be surprised to see a Take Heart onto this Shadow Assassin here. It would still float an appropriate amount of spell mana. Neverwinter having some second thoughts about it, perhaps just trying to play around a Vengeance or Atrocity, something like that off the top. It is going to be the Take Heart onto this. Nope, putting it back down. Going to play the Avarosan Sentry instead. He does have the mana to play Avarosan Sentry and the Take Heart. So just inspecting the board, trying to make an informed decision. Looking at this Harsh Winds for some reason. It's just going to be a pass, actually. does have the mana to play it if he wants to. And this is going to be a Ladros, not going to kill as the Spirit's Refuge had come through. He is no longer at 1 life. Very lucky on the part of Neverwinter here. Going to be a double Take Heart into a double Twin Discipline here. And that is not quite... No, that is lethal damage, as the Anivia will deal 2 across the board and face. Definitely have to attack with this Anivia at least. Cannot just leave the Carmen behind. And now a Vengeance here would shore up this game for Wolf. Unfortunately, no Vengeance in the list means that this Anivia is going to come through, and then this massive Shadow Assassin going to put him in the ground and tie it up 1-1 in favor of Neverwinter. Game number 3 here underway for FrozenWinter versus Wolf. FrozenWinter picking up the last game with his Karma Anivia deck, and coming in with another unique deck, this one a Vladimir take on the Elites, and looking like an older version of the Elite decks, having a couple copies of Battlesmith in here, as well as some of the older units that pair a lot better with Battlesmith, such as Vanguard Defender, and 3 copies of Vanguard Sergeant, really just trying to build up as big a board as possible, go as wide as possible, take advantage of these Relentless Pursuit effects, and an On Guard, a couple copies of On Guard actually, also coming out to give his board Challenger, and try and eat up his opponent's board with his bigger units, which will be a lot bigger thanks to the Vanguard Sergeant giving him copies of 4 Demacia. So, while these two are both running very similar decks in terms of archetype, they're both running Demacia Elites with 6 off-region cards. Let's talk about this a little bit and dive a little bit deeper. So, on the side of Wolf, you have the Fiora Barrier deck, just Fiora, Shen, and Greenglade Caretaker. So, Greenglade Caretaker and Shen as the only Ionia cards in this deck, no copies of Deny or Spirit's Refuge, anything like that. And then on the side of FrozenWinter rather, we have Transfusion and Vladimir. So the Vladimir working in tandem with this deck. As you go wide, you build a tall board, tall meaning the units have a lot of health on them, and then the Vladimir gets a little bit of over-the-top damage, which is something that these decks are generally lacking. So it's nice to be able to find that kind of burn. Almost surprised they didn't go for Decimate, instead going for Transfusion, getting a little bit of combat trick down there. Not wanting to commit too hard onto this cheeky over-the-top burn. Vladimir going to be getting the job done in his mind. Another thing worth noting, no 5-mana followers coming out of FrozenWinter, as we see the Radiant Guardian and Swiftwing Lancer on the side of Wolf. No, for FrozenWinter, it's just going to be the Garen and Vladimir coming in with that 5-mana slot. We see a Garen in his hand. Could come down next turn, get double buffed by these Battlesmiths, as Garen is an Elite. Meanwhile, some awkward attacks being lined up here as both players start to build up their boards and make them a little bit bigger. Battlesmith on the side of FrozenWinter and Vanguard Bannerman on the side of Wolf. We'll see which one comes out on top here. Already having a tough unit down on the side of FrozenWinter is going to help a little bit, as well as the Chain Vest in hand. Also worth pointing out, 3 copies of Chain Vest in this deck here, and single combat being the only form of removal, really, for this Fiora deck on the side of Wolf, and a couple copies of single combat as well for FrozenWinter, as well as 2 copies of Judgment, as well as every subsequent copy of Garen being turned into a Judgment. So definitely on the favorable side of the removal going to be on the favorable side for FrozenWinter here. Getting a little bit ahead of myself, I apologize. A lot of words to trip over in this matchup, as a lot of Vanguards are coming down on both sides of the field. The Vanguard Defender and Vanguard Sergeant so far on the side of FrozenWinter, with a Vanguard Redeemer in hand and a Vanguard Bannerman on the side of Wolf. Now a Fiora could come down here, as well as a single combat, to try and clear out these Battlesmiths for good. Instead, going directly to combat is Wolf, and what this is going to do is take one of the Battlesmiths off the field before FrozenWinter can get a chance to play an Elite. So this Garen would come down as a 6/6 instead of a 7/7, as he did not get the Challenger down, deciding that the +1/+1 buff, or the additional +1/+1 buff on any amount of Elites coming down this turn, is not worth it. He wants to use the single combat here. And it looks like the War Chef going to line that up pretty usefully, electing not to play the Fiora pre-combat and take out both of them, instead saying, I want one of these gone before you have the chance to play anything, is the point that I was trying to make earlier in so few words. But now, single combat going to come out for this War Chef, going to take out this Battlesmith, and then get traded down by the Sergeant. Going to be 5 damage coming in at the face of FrozenWinter, going to tie it up 14-14, as well as the game score being tied 1-1. Here in this pseudo-mirror match, a Sergeant coming down. Going to pick up a Cythria of Cloudfield, the little woman who could make her way through the Demacian armies. One thing worth mentioning as well, there is no Vanguard, so that's a Vanguard Redeemer that came down, sorry, and searched for the Cythria. There is no 4-drop Cythria, the one that gets less costed for each elite that you played this game. The one I am thinking of is Vanguard Squire. No Vanguard Squire coming out of FrozenWinter, a card that we are accustomed to seeing in some of the older versions that still ran the Battlesmith. Now the Transfusion off the top. Going to let this Garen contest this Radiant Guardian. Worth noting, while there is no Radiant Guardian or Swiftwing Lancer to, or Redemption rather, is it Redemption? Remembrance rather, sorry, to create a random copy of it. There will be no life gain coming out of this Vladimir Demacia deck on the side of FrozenWinter. However, Wolf does have a second Radiant Guardian, will keep himself rather healthy here. Toughness, a hard mechanic to chew through in this matchup. A single combat finally coming in for FrozenWinter, going to get more or less negated by this prismatic barrier. However, this frozen combat, this single combat onto a Garen will get out the evolution. A little bit of an awkward time for him to do so, as doing it in the middle of your opponent's turn doesn't net any immediate value, as Garen gives you the rally effect at the start of the round. We are well past that, and then once the next round comes around, of course it will be FrozenWinter's turn with the attack token, and you cannot bank an attack token, so Garen gonna be a few turns off of getting value off of his evolution, outside of just the generic +1/+1 that he will get for leveling up. It looks like the 4 Demacia gonna come down, saying, I don't want to sacrifice this Battlesmith just yet to this Fiora. And then not enough mana for the Relentless Pursuit to come down in tandem with it. So just going to be used as a pseudo fog effect, as there is another Vanguard Sergeant in the hand of FrozenWinter to get another copy of 4 Demacia when he so chooses. Unfortunately, this Fiora coming down a little bit awkwardly on the side of Wolf. Only 4 mana left to play with 2 5-drops in hand, so the Greenglade Caretaker going to come down. No reason to waste the mana or the board space. A single combat on this Garen. Going to go for this Fiora, it looks like. Will probably just get out the Prismatic Barrier, but will still upgrade this Garen. Absolutely no concern out of him for combat tricks coming down that would trade into this. It would have to be 2 Twin Disciplines, really, as a riposte would not leave him with enough mana for anything else. And of course, Twin Discipline, not traditionally played in this deck. It is just this Greenglade Caretaker, as well as Shen as the Ionia cards. Single combat being rerouted to one of the bigger Greenglade Caretakers, instead going back to the Fiora, slamming the OK button, and a Prismatic Barrier going to come down, I would imagine, as this Battlesmith does still need to be dealt with. That Fiora, the only way to do it at present. Could develop the Swiftwing Lancer a little bit later. Might even attack with this Fiora. That's a lie, because the barrier is going away right now. Forgot he did not just do that for no reason. There's the Garen level up. One of the only Garens, I believe the only Garen in this tournament, certainly the only Vladimir in this tournament. And another Transfusion off the top. This Transfusion actually coming in really big for FrozenWinter. Unfortunately, this riposte is going to bring down this Garen. If it goes onto a Greenglade Caretaker, there is nothing that FrozenWinter could do to save it, as a Transfusion would only get him up to a 9/9 in the face of this 10 attack barriered minion. 2 Vanguard Bannermen going to block out the Cythria and the Vanguard Redeemer. It looks like half of the board will get traded off here on the side of FrozenWinter, while 5 units remaining on the side of Wolf once it's all said and done, if this riposte does come down onto this Caretaker. Transfusion could be used to save either the Cythria or the Redeemer if FrozenWinter wants to take that line. The Relentless Pursuit almost certainly not going to come down this turn, probably going to save that for the second for Demacia. And 8 damage going to be traded into Wolf's life total here. Unfortunately, not going to mean a whole lot in the face of this giant board. And if a favorable trade does come down for FrozenWinter with this transfusion, then the Radiant Guardian is going to be turned online. It will be the transfusion from the Garen onto the Vanguard Sergeant, Redeemer rather. It's a lot of Vanguards. So, clean 2-for-2 trade, or 2-for-1 trade. Their board's the same size, is the point that I'm trying to get. And then finally, we get the Vanguard Sergeant. I'm going to get another copy of For Demacia, this Battlesmith, hanging on for dear life for so long. I'm going to turn this into a 4-4. A very stalemated board state here. The advantage a little bit, I would have to say, for Wolf, as he has a 5-5 with Tough. But another transfusion. Just back-to-back-to-back transfusions. Going to be the For Demacia now for FrozenWinter. Relentless Pursuit could come out in combination with it. Generally, you want to get this down on your turn so that you can For Demacia attack and then Relentless Pursuit and attack again once their board has been traded off. Unfortunately, going to get 2 combat phases in a row still. Unfortunately, not going to have the For Demacia for the second one. It is just going to be a swing out from FrozenWinter. It's going to be a Radiant Guardian onto the Battlesmith. Vanguard Bannerman onto the Redeemer. 2 attacks does make lethal. Unfortunately, too high of a life total for the transfusion to come through and be a lethal attack as well. It's going to be another riposte off the top. These transfusions and ripostes just coming back to back to back for Wolf and FrozenWinter respectively. It's going to be a lot of trading going on. Transfusion could be used to protect the Battlesmith as well as run over this Radiant Guardian and get the lifesteal off of Wolf's side of the field. And Wolf does have a counterattack still. Looks like Transfusion will be coming down from the Tough Vanguard Defender onto the Battlesmith, going to get to beat up that Radiant Guardian, as well as a Chain Vest coming down onto this Redeemer to let it survive the Bannerman. So it looks like it's going to be another 2-for-2 trade. Or a 2-for-3 rather, as this 9-4 is going to die to the 7-7, and then the other Caretaker going to have Barrier and survive that hit. There is a combat phase. Wolf passing the turn, looking like he did not mean to do that up there on the player cam. Wanted to, for sure, get some attacks in of his own. Perhaps the Swiftwing Lancer down onto the Battlesmith. Now a champion top deck for both players. Going to be a little bit better for FrozenWinter here, as his is upgraded and does have regen. Unfortunately, he's staring down a massive Greenglade Caretaker, going to be able to just trade into that Shen. Thinking out the turn, if he attacks like this, it will be 1 damage pushed through by the Transfusion. Unfortunately, only a 4-3 coming in with the other attack. Could get blocked out by Fiora. Do not think that Fiora is going to be winning the game with her ability anytime soon. And these stat lines not really lining up for her to get a lot of value outside of killing this Battlesmith, but a good enough reason not to block with her nonetheless. It looks like it might just be the... Nope, it's going to be the Vanguard Sergeant thrown back under the bus. Not really a super clean trade for this onto Wolf's side of the board. A Shen could just bounce off of it. So it would be a 4-3 and a 2-5, putting them both down to 1 health. But it is just going to be a solo Vlad coming in, almost certainly going to get traded out by this Greenglade Caretaker. Transfusion not doing anything as no other units attacked with the Vladimir. And the champion top deck working out a little bit better for Wolf in the end. A Judgment off the top is actually going to be huge here for FrozenWinter. But a second Swiftwing Lancer, probably the best thing that he could hope for in terms of maintaining advantage here. And that's going to be a lot of attacks trying to finally get this Battlesmith down, and it's still not going to do it. Now a Judgment here will clear out these Swiftwing Lancers, take the barrier off of this Fiora, and put the Shen down to 1 HP, which will then trade onto the Fiora as she is attacking into a tough Vanguard Redeemer that will trade back at her. So going to, when all is said and done, going to be 2 elites in the hand of Wolf, as well as a Battlesmith and a Sergeant on the board left for Frozen One, and a Shen left over for Wolf. So, ooh. So Vanguard Cavalry going to be a really big pickup here. That's a really good elite. You know, Frozen One was hoping to see some Sithri of Cloudfields, but no, a 5/5 with toughness going to come down, and the Karma is going to come back as a Fleet Feather Tracker going to be on top of the deck, going to just trade easily into this Vanguard that has already gotten its value out of building up the Fort Demacia. And now this Redeemer will be able to get a unit out of the deck. This one going to be a Vanguard Bannerman. Not a particularly large board, but building up the stats nonetheless. This Battlesmith living an impossibly long time. And another Vanguard Bannerman off the top, followed by another Riposte for Wolf, trying to figure out exactly what this combat's about to look like, as there are 3 challengers on the side of Wolf. However, all of them are only 2/1s, not going to be able to actually kill anything on their own. This barrier going to go over to the cavalry so that it does not get traded on by one of the Vanguards. Wolf rethinking his line of attacks. This Riposte could be used on this Fleet Feather Tracker to finally take this Battlesmith off the board. However, if no blocks are declared, that will no longer be an option. Too tempting to block the Shen, completely understandable. You would think this would be a rather free block, but this third Riposte coming out from Wolf is going to make this a clean trade for him on this Shen onto the Vanguard, and 5 damage being pushed through by this cavalry. The Fleet Feather Tracker just going to die to the Battlesmith, though. A little bit of a weird attack in my mind, but I do not know what is going through the players' heads. I am not a mind reader. And here we have the second Bannerman coming down. No whiffs on the Bannerman this game. And that Battlesmith still alive, and a huge pickup in this Vanguard Sergeant, followed by a Fort Demacia and another Swiftwing Lancer for Wolf is going to keep him in this game. Let's see what... He's had some pretty good elite creations so far. That is going to take 2 attacks to get lethal damage through here. Thinking about whether or not this Battlesmith has to attack. These Silverwing Vanguards going to be really great chump blockers here, as they can get thrown under the bus of these massive Bannermen. This has been an extremely neck-and-neck game. Both players consistently top-decking the perfect, seemingly perfect card for the situation, and it looks like FrozenWinter not going to attack with this Battlesmith after all, is just going to push through the 3 attacks, likely going to be chumped out by these Vanguards. So many Vanguards, I apologize. I realize I'm just saying the first half of the name. I mean the Silverwing Vanguards, probably going to block out these Vanguard Bannermen. And if he is so inclined, Wolf could just take this Vanguard Sergeant to the face, go down to 3, but protect his units, as he does have to find a way to win the game on his own. Also worth noting, thanks to this Fort Demacia, the damage not actually going to stick onto these Bannermen as they go down to a 6/6 and a 5/5 will be ripe and healthy again, and having a 6/6 on the side of FrozenWinter might be the advantage that he needs in this matchup. So many 5-attack minions on the side of Wolf, not going to be able to get a clean trade onto that. This is some of the most complex, consistently complex combat math I have ever seen. That's not a good trade. Gonna be the Vanguard Silverwing underneath of the Bannermans. Bannerman kills Silverwing, Bannerman kills Silverwing. Sergeant does not quite kill Wolf. And now Wolf has the attack token. And a Vladimir off the top for Frozen One. FrozenWinter. Frozen One is a Dance Gavin Dance song, and apparently I've got it on my mind, as that is what comes out of my mouth when I say the word Frozen. I apologize. A Prismatic Barrier on the side of Wolf is going to be really relevant as this Shen upgrades here. That is now a 3-mana riposte, effectively. It's going to be the Battlesmith potentially finally going down here. This is 8 damage coming through, and if anything, if this Vanguard Cavalry is not a Vanguard Cavalry, it is a Chivalrous Cavalry. That's not true either. It is a Vanguard Cavalry. So many Vanguards in the Demacian army. This Vanguard Cavalry, if it goes unblocked, will actually end the game thanks to this riposte. I call it riposte. It is a prismatic barrier that will give +3 attack thanks to the ability of the Shen. So a 3-mana riposte effectively. I do know the name of the card for the most part. So prismatic barrier going to come down on the Shen to protect it, kill the Sergeant, and that is going to leave 2 other units. 3 is the magic number, and once Wolf sees this Vlad, he's going to know all it's going to take is a unit off the top. Wolf definitely having a harsh reaction to that Vlad. Another Vanguard Cavalry coming down off the Swiftwing Lancer, and here comes the game, and it's little Cythria of Cloudfield going to be the game-ending card, as this Vladimir will siphon the life out of her and throw it at Wolf, and this Vlad coming in clutch to have the exact lethal here in this pivotal game number 2. What a long and grindy match it has been for Vlad to come down and end it. The super tech out of FrozenWinter paying dividends here and bringing them up 2-1 in this series. After a very long and grueling game number 4, or game number 3 rather, we are here into game number 4. Of course, FrozenWinter, up 2 games, is playing with his last deck, and arguably the most normal one that he brought to the tournament in terms of things that you generally see in this Teemo Elise deck. Certainly a more normal combination than we are used to seeing. The only Demacia Noxus deck in the tournament, if memory serves. And this deck going to be a Teemo Elise deck playing the Sacrifice package, as I like to call it, with things like Ravenous Butcher, Cursed Keeper, Fading Memories, and Haunted Relic. Going to be going very fast, very early, unfortunately not finding a hapless Aristocrat. So it is going to be a bit of a slow start on the side of FrozenWinter rather. And then Wolf going to be getting in an attack with his War Chef, not going to block with his Boom Crew Rookie, as he wants to get off 2 attacks, not a block and an attack. And we've seen multiple Boom Crew Rookies work and not work over the course of this tournament. The Radiant Guardian in hand for Wolf, going to be a threatening presence over the course of this game. The Lifesteal Behemoth, rather difficult to deal with in this Piltover and Zon Shadow Isle deck. No Vengeance or anything of that nature, capping out at 2 mana on the cost of his spells. Not even running any copies of Get Excited, only Mystic Shot coming through in that regard. No Black Spear either. There's going to be 2 damage from the Undermines coming through, putting Wolf at 16. However, Wolf definitely more of the aggressor in this matchup, it seems, as he does have some bigger minions. These Boom Crew Rookies not quite getting the job done with just the Undermine. An Augmented Experimenter available for refuel a little bit later on, but in the meantime we're going to see a Vile Feast through onto the Brightsteel Protector, which is going to then single combat instead, getting down one of these Boom Crew Rookies, which means no life gain and no Spiderling on the side of FrozenWinter. Wolf seeming pretty in control of this game as we get into turn 4, still at 16 life, and going to be another Brightsteel Protector onto the War Chef. Going to get matched by a hapless Aristocrat. The Aristocrat going to get thrown under this Brightsteel Protector. Another single combat off the top for Wolf. Will deny this Glimpse Beyond if he goes for it, and he is going to. Single combat, almost certainly going to take this offline. The only removal spell available in the deck. Very heads up to go for the Glimpse Beyond, as a single combat was just used. The chance of there being another one was relatively low. Unfortunately for FrozenWinter, it's not going to work out like that, and there is going to be a second copy hiding in the hand of Wolf. The Namesake Prankster coming out now for FrozenWinter. Nothing played on the side of Wolf just yet, hoping to get down this Radiant Guardian, and FrozenWinter going to give him the opportunity, as this Brightsteel Protector will probably line up onto this Elise, as well as the War Chef onto the Boom Crew Rookie. This Undermines not getting the job done, and this is a pretty high life total to be at in the face of this Radiant Guardian coming down. It is going to be 10 when it's all said and done, thanks to this Prankster. A little bit lower than I had thought, my apologies. But this massive Angel of the Battlefield, Radiant Guardian coming down. Going to be nearly impossible to deal with for this Piltover Zon Shadow Isle deck, just based on the spells. And a Swiftwing Lancer going to be able to take out the Prankster. This Augmented Experimenter looking pretty tempting as a Boom Crew rookie, and Unleashed Spirits not going to do a whole lot in the face of Wolf's board. Sorry, Haunted Relic, not Unleashed Spirits. Unleashed Spirits, I believe, is the name of the Hecarim spell. No Hecarims coming down in this deck from FrozenWinter. Augmented Experimenter being the only 6-mana unit in this deck. No Rekindlers either, as Teemo and Elise are not exactly the kind of champions you want to be paying 6 mana for. Definitely appropriately costed for what they do. And let's see what this refuel gets him. It's going to be an Elise, a Ravenous Butcher, and a Cursed Keeper. Very strong opening hand. Unfortunately, not a great turn 6. The Radiant Guardian going to swap to the other side with this Swiftwing Lancer. Could get blocked out by a Spider for no damage onto the Guardian. Could get blocked out by this Augmented Experimenter, which would line it up for a Mystic Shot kill. Unfortunately, this Riposte out of Wolf almost certainly going to say that this Radiant Guardian is going to live a lot longer than FrozenWinter can afford to let it. Just going to eat the damage. Going to be a big life total swing and advantage swing over to Wolf, who is going to have a hard time losing this game, it seems. These 1/1 Spiders not going to get anything done. A Ravenous Butcher into a Cursed Keeper could be a backbreaking play at a lot of stages in the game. Unfortunately, do not think this is one of them. As a Riposte onto this Radiant Guardian will make for a very clean block and go back up to 20 life. Not many clean attacks on the side of FrozenWinter. Things just not looking up for him here in this game number 4. And this could be all she wrote here in this game number 4. Now the casters pointing out that a Swiftwing Lancer could get buffed up by the War Chefs, and that's why this Escaped Abomination feels compelled to attack now, as a 6/5 Lancer will just run it over for free. Thinking about swinging out with even more things. Might as well throw the whole board out. Nope. Going to play the Elise, actually. Just going to get an auto pass out of Wolf, as he wants to save this Riposte mana for combat if things get a little bit too hairy. Even if all of this goes through, only going to be it's only 14 damage, rather. Going to be 1 life remaining on the side of Wolf. Even if this Spiderling attacks, it is the same amount of damage, as Elise will summon her own Spiderling. This could get an Elise upgrade, although I am hard-pressed to imagine this Elise not dying in this combat sequence. Unfortunately, just too many favorable trades on the side of Wolf for FrozenWinter to feel safe to attack. It might just be the lone Escaped Abomination. Might actually be no attacks, which would bank the spell mana. But no, it is going to be the Escaped Abomination coming through. Wolf now deciding how he wants to handle this. A Riposte onto the Radiant Guardian and a block theoretically would put him at 20 life. However, the Vile Feast going to be the punish for that. It is FrozenWinter's best bet at getting back into this game. We'll see if Wolf goes for the Gambit. And it is just going to be a Swiftwing Lancer, taking an easy 1-for-1 trade, and creating a Vanguard Bannerman. That's really big. Could play it here. Is going to get the Swiftwing Lancer down first, having a massive challenger. And then that, unfortunately, another Haunted Relic. Not going to do anything here. The Vanguard Bannerman coming down with a Brightsteel formation on backup for next turn, and it is Wolf's turn to be the aggressor. War Chef going to buff War Chef, going to buff Greenglade Caretaker, and then the rest of these units going to swing out in an order that doesn't really matter. Elise going to get challenged by the Swiftwing Lancer here, going to take off the chance of an evolution, and this is lethal attacks coming in on the side of Wolf. Everything on his board has 4 toughness. That is blockable. And unfortunately, only 3 attack units coming out on the side of FrozenWinter. Could go for a Vile Feast play, but all that does is make room on the board for the Brightsteel formation. And that looks like it's going to be all she wrote here in game number 4. as we will have a Shadow Isle mirror for game number 5. Wolf bringing back the mono Shadow Isle that he lost with earlier. A Vile Feast going to come down onto this Green Glade Caretaker. Not going to break the record set earlier in the tournament for biggest Green Glade Caretaker I've ever seen. This Radiant Guardian just being too difficult for this deck to deal with. However, that is the advantage of being up 2-1. You have a little bit of space to lose a game, and you do not have to deal with this deck anymore, as is the fun style of the Conquest format. Used Cask Salesman, going to come down in the Bright Steel formation, going to barrier up Wolf's board. Just a pass saying you don't get to kill me at 20 life, you will at least take a little bit of damage. The Mark of the Isle that FrozenWinter needed so desperately earlier to try and trade onto this Radiant Guardian with a Spiderling. The turn the Augmented Experimenter came down, did have one Spell Mana banked. Unfortunately, too late is this Mark of the Isle, and that is going to be all she wrote here in game number 4. We're at a tie series and a Shadow Isle mirror coming into game 5 to see who advances to the top 8, the Riot Invitational. Legends of Runeterra fans, I ask you, are you ready for game number 5 of Wolf versus FrozenWinter? Both of these players down to their last deck, going to be a Shadow Isle mirror. Of course, the Piltover and Zaun variant coming out from FrozenWinter, a deck that we have seen in the past, as well as the Mono Shadow Isle from Wolf, another deck that we have seen him play before, and the Phantom Prankster, going to have two copies in the opening hand of FrozenWinter, going to elect to keep those, as it can add up rather quickly with this sacrificial package that he has built for himself. And the Hapless Aristocrat going to come down on turn 1 this game, not finding that last time around. And a Cursed Keeper going to be a pretty good follow-up with a Mark of the Isle. An aggressive start on the side of Wolf as well, though, going in with this Arachnid Horror. No blocks coming through, no blocks able to come through, in fact. And a Mystic Shot going to be the pickup. 2 copies of the box is actually going to make it difficult for these pranksters to come down. Could just jam it here. Could go for a Mark of the Isle. He's going to go for the Mark of the Isle onto the the Cursed Keeper. Could be a block out from Wolf, followed by a Glimpse Beyond just to save some damage. That does not seem to be what he's reaching for. Perhaps a good read on the box here, not throwing down this Prankster. Could actually just be trying to stave off some aggression, getting the 4/4 Unleashed Abomination out in order to block this Horror and whatever may be coming down alongside it this turn, which is likely to be a Frenzied Skitterer. If the Prankster had come down previously, that would be at least 6 damage getting pushed through on the next turn if the box didn't clean it up. Now we find the Ravenous Butcher, which would have made a much cleaner play with that Cursed Keeper. No box available now on the side of Wolf. Going to make it a pretty safe play to get down this Prankster, if that is the route that he wants to go. Could go for the used Cask Salesman for a few more blocks, maybe even a Ravenous Butcher. Would imagine that he wants to at least try and save this Butcher for when one Prankster is down, if not both of them. Will be the Horrors and the Skitterers coming through. So going to be a Mystic Shot over onto the Arachnid Horror. Could go for a Glimpse Beyond onto it. Instead, going to elect to go for the Vile Feast, trade on the Skitterer, which is going to be an Arachnid Horror down, a Skitterer to the face, a Skitterer trading with this Abomination, and a 1/1 left over on the side of Wolf. Going to then get down this Ravenous Butcher. Definitely seems like he's playing around the box here, not wanting to wait for the second Prankster to come down. Looking through everything that happened in the last couple of turns is FrozenWinter. Just recounting the experience so far, making sure nothing has been missed. He hasn't miscounted anything like that. Only 5 mana on the side of Wolf. This could go very poorly for him if he plays a Wraithcaller here, as he will not have the mana to box. And he is going to go for the Wraithcaller, which could be a Snap Prankster by FrozenWinter, beautifully playing around this box. Now these things actually looking really cloggy in the hand of Wolf. And now everything that gets blocked is going to be 2 damage coming through at Wolf. He's only 6 units dying off of losing this game. And with the used Cask Salesman in hand, That's a lot. That is a lot of damage coming through on the side of FrozenWinter. This will be 4 damage if everything lines up the way it is currently stated to. Going 9 to 13 with a Frenzied Skitterer that can freely attack, as there are no fearsome blockers on the side of FrozenWinter once this Wraithcaller dies. Well, the second Wraithcaller almost certainly going to come down this turn, unless he goes for a Glimpse Beyond on the Spiderling to deny the death of the other Spiderling, save himself some life, see if he can find something to deal with these pranksters out of the back line. Black Spear has to be on his mind. Only 2 in the main for Wolf, though. And a Glimpse Beyond of his own is actually going to be a huge pickup for FrozenWinter. Unfortunately, Hecarim not coming down on 6 for Wolf. That was his way back into the game, instead finding the Rekindler, the wrong 6-mana unit. And now Frozen 1, considering this Glimpse Beyond, if it goes for the Hapless Aristocrat, that is more units on the board. However, playing it on the Spiderling would get through room to play this Used Cask Salesman, and would push through 2 damage on the Spiderling, and then 6 on the Caskman, thanks to the Casks dying. And that would put FrozenWinter down, or that would put Wolf down to 2, which would actually make it so that he could no longer attack as long as this Used Cask Salesman is on board before one of these go down. Is the Legion Grenadier dilemma we saw in Game 1, Match 1 in the Group A. Is going to be the glimpse onto this Spiderling to free up some space for this Caskman, and Elise and Teemo coming down as well. And now this Caskman says you actually cannot attack this turn, as anything that you attack with will get blocked by this Caskman and kill you. Unfortunately, Wolf just never finding the opportunity to play the boxes, sitting dead in his hand. You can see Frozen understanding that this is his game to win if everything goes according to plan. Just has to play it smoothly, play around what little life gain there is in the deck, and it's just going to pass the turn. Going to 2 rather, is Wolf. You can see the disappointment on his face. No way around this, as the Caskman will be the final nail in the coffin. And a Glimpse Beyond out of Frozen can just win this game here. Instead, electing to play it a little slower, a little more properly. Going to get the Teemo down. Going to be a Glimpse Beyond out of Wolf, understanding that the cards in his hand are not going to win this game. The boxes now all but useless. Death sentences in his hand. And a Hapless Aristocrat and a Harrowing. Not going to do it, so Elise going to come down, and these boxes, unfortunately, the boxes showing them to FrozenWinter, saying the reads that you made were correct. I had 2 of these, and they are now useless as they kill me. And you can see the sigh of relief and laughter out of FrozenWinter, picking up a well-deserved victory here and advancing to the top 8 of this tournament. Congratulations to FrozenWinter advancing through Group B into the quarterfinals.